Welcome to the talk show Promising Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. And this is Sinha A.M. Saeed anchoring this very talk show. Viewers, today we have invited two guests, and they're very much known to the nation. One is Barrister Asaduzzaman Fuad, Joint Member Secretary of AB Party and a political analyst. How are you, Mr. Fuad?
I'm fine, thank you.
Other being Mr. Jahidur Rahman. He is what he is, need not to be introduced. And he is one of the leading YouTubers and a political analyst. How are you, Mr. Jahidur Rahman?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, Barrister Asaduzzaman Fuad, you are a political leader. And you know very well what is happening in Bangladesh at this very moment, centering Chinmoy Das, ISKCON. What is your overall study on the issues?
Thank you. ISKCON is a very interesting organization because fundamentally they believe in a monotheistic version of the Hinduism, what used to be the Brahma school of thought. We used to know that Rabindranath Tagore and Vivekananda, Isha Chandra Vidyasagar and many others had the view that Hinduism can be practiced without idol worshipping. That's the kind of a version of thought they adhere to. But of course, at the same time, we have seen that this person, Chinmoy, also belongs to a Sanatani Jagaran Mancho, the traditional Hindu revivalist version of the faith. And that comes to my mind is quite a contradictory version of they belong to, or what he stands for. And also it's interesting that this ISKCON organization, International Society for the Krishna Consciousness, is an organization that was founded in Americas in 60s, perhaps 1965 or 66. And it was founded by a person that he went to Christian missionary school. That's also an interesting part of the journey. And it's based in West Bengal. It's a Bangla speaking part of the Indian state. So covering all the facts and figures is quite interesting what they stand for and what they believe in. And secondly, it is also a matter of concern that since Chinmoy was arrested, Indian External Affairs Ministry had issued a statement about the persistent propaganda concern that was happening in Bangladesh, concern about the minorities, concern about the post-Hasina regime, security and protection of the large part of the population. And in added value to it is the BJP segment of West Bengal had threatened if something happens to Chinmoy, they would block our border, international border. And perhaps recently there has been a wide speculation in Indian propaganda machineries that he could be harmed within the prison, his life could be threatened within the prison, he might not get the legal services that he deserves, and so forth. Although he was granted division as a divisional prisoner, although I'm not quite sure that as a head of a private organization or a charity or an NGO, how could we be like covers the criteria to be granted the divisional prisoner bench. The fact of the matter is, Hindu Buddha Christian Oikya Parishad, the very communal extremist organization, had published a report saying since July and August, 9 members of the Hindu community have been killed. Now the journalists, the fact checkers, found out all the 9 members, yes, it's fact, those 9 people have been killed, but they have been killed not because they belong to a particular faith community. Rather, they have been killed because they belong to Awami League, the deposed regime. Now, there have been many more Awami League leaders, their properties, their homes, their jobs, shops have been vandalized. Of course, we certainly do not condone and do not accept this should be the right course of action. But this is what happened on facts. Now, this is the minority politics in Bangladesh. Until you are beaten up, until your properties are damaged, until you have been killed, you are Awami League leaders. Once those things happen to you, you are a Hindu. That is the propaganda machine we have been seeing across the country and world. Irony is about the Indian administration that this is the very state, it has a fascist Hindutva political party in place, which is led by Modi, the infamously called the butcher of Gujarat. So somebody heading an administration who have been alleged by the international community once upon a time as a butcher and the violators of the human rights, committed genocide and crimes against humanity early back in 25 years. Now he's leading the organization and the administration. This country and this administration is so concerned about what's happening in Bangladesh. Other irony about the Indian administration is their own minority. How are they? Only 2 days or 3 days back, 3 or 4 Muslims have been killed in Uttar Pradesh while their mosque had been attacked and vandalized. In Manipur, the Christian community have been butchered and massacred for last few years. They have no rights. They have no access to jobs and education. In Kashmir, the only majority Muslim state, where the Article 370 post and pre, we have seen how they are treating there, how the Maoist guerrillas have been fighting in Seven Sisters and other places who are the separatist movement. India, at least in 7 or 8 places, have been fighting their own citizens currently and through their military machine. So this is a country which doesn't have any respect to their own minorities of all kinds, even their own Hindu people of low caste, Dalit and untouchables, how they treat them. I've seen recently women have been burned alive because she entered a temple which is only for the Brahmins, the upper caste. So, and she was a local member of the parliament, the state assembly member. Now, this is a society they are living in now, yet they are so concerned about Bangladesh. They should be more shameful about it. Now, if you're concerned about the 9 Hindu people have been killed, have you been concerned that 1,700 people have been butchered by your own installed regime of Hasina in June, July, August? I haven't seen any concern of the Indian administration. So why they are concerned about the 9 people in Bangladesh, they are not concerned about the 1,700 people that have been butchered, brutally killed by the last deposed regime?
I will come to you, Mr. Barrister Fuad. Dr. Zahidur Rahman, you listen to what Barrister Fuad says. What is your understanding?
Thank you. My understanding, in fact, is almost like Mr. Fuad. And very nicely, he mentioned about the background of ISKCON. But what India is doing is very much predictable. It's happening what was supposed to happen. Let's go a bit back. When the election was approaching, I seriously followed the narrative of Indian people. Some people who had responsibility as high commissioners, they talked about Bangladesh's current situation. And one person, currently she is a professor of a university in international relations. In most of the cases, especially that woman, the very woman, Sri Radha Datta, she told that Sheikh Hasina regime was not performing well. It's not democratic. It's violating human rights. It was having some severe rampant corruption, and also manipulated the elections, everything. But why Sheikh Hasina should be in power? Her narrative was, if she is ousted, Bangladesh will be in serious disarray, especially it will be facilitating some Islamic extremism. So that was the narrative. So Sheikh Hasina is not good, but she should be in power for India's interest and the interest of this region to make it a bit stable, because if the Islamic fundamentalists are in power, it will create severe disturbance in the stability of this subcontinent. That was their narrative. So when Sheikh Hasina is ousted, this narrative should be implemented and should be given some ground. That's the reason since 5th August, we saw that they clearly mentioned that Islamic extremists were in power in our country. I faced some foreign media who asked me a question repeatedly. That is, we heard that many statues of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman has been vandalized and broken. So is it that Islamic fundamentalists don't like statues because it's discouraged in Islam? Then I say, okay, better come to Dhaka and see how many sculptures are still there. It was exclusively Sheikh Mujib's statue, and it's because of that. We all know now. But they tried to create. And one media even gave me the comparison of destroying the Bamyang Buddhas by Talibans. They compared it to like that. Then I realized what's going to happen. So they created narratives of Hindus are being attacked. It's number one is showing that Islamic extremism is there. At the same time, BJP government, like especially Mr. Modi, like Vladimir Putin. Putin thinks he is the custodian of all Russian-speaking people. Mr. Modi is thinking he is the custodian of all Hindus of this region, at least, if not of the whole world. They enacted an act, Citizenship Amendment Act, which says that if you are tortured or you are facing any problems in any of the countries of subcontinents, you can go to India, but you have to be a minority. Not a Muslim can do that. So you can go to India and get the citizenship over there. So this is another reason. For Modi's domestic politics is also important. That Hindus are being persecuted in many of the areas. I can give, I should like to add some background here in some recent information. That is, in a legislative assembly election in Jharkhand, BJP's result was very disastrous. Their main issue was Bangladeshi infiltrators. They told that, they tried to create a narrative that Bangladeshi infiltrators were going on over there and they were trying to grab the lands of the indigenous people. This narrative utterly failed. They were not in power previously, but they hoped they'll get it this time. But it didn't happen. Not only that, their number of seats declined. Same thing happened in case of some by-elections of Legislative Assembly in West Bengal, where their result was disastrous as well. So I believe the Hindu narrative, Hindu card so-called, should be played even more in this country so that they can polarize the voters in his country, so that they can get better election results. I'd like to add the importance of West Bengal's Legislative Assembly to BJP. It was so critical that in the previous elections, Mr. Modi came to that state for 20 times and he didn't follow the COVID protocol at that moment. He was so serious about that. Not only that, after Modi, two of the poster boys of BJP, Mr. Amit Shah and Yogi Adityanath, the Chief Minister of the Uttar Pradesh, stayed there for days, or weeks. They campaigned vigorously, but their result was very bad, even worse than the previous time. So they are very serious about that, and I believe this sort of polarization will be increasing in the future. Now, one more thing I'd like to add. Some organization, ISKCON, Mr. Fuad very nicely told the background of that organization, perhaps is used to implement the agenda of BJP. One thing we should always try to remember, some religious guru doesn't necessarily mean the person is doing well to the society, is not doing anything harmful, because I can give a very nice example on that. We know about the Rohingya persecution, and a famous religious guru was accused of that, Mr. Ashin Virathu. He became the cover of Time, and the title was The Face of Buddhist Terrorism. He gave some fatwa that yes, you can kill Muslims, though killing any animal, not only Muslims, is strongly prohibited in Buddhism, but he did it. I'm not saying Mr. Chinmoy is like that, but we should not be confused by saying that yes, this person is a religious guru, he cannot do any harm to the society, which narrative is trying to establish the Indian media. So we should be careful about that. And one more thing I'd like to add, after the arrest of Mr. Chinmoy, we know a lawyer was killed in the court premises in a broad daylight. Still their campaign is going on. I found after that incident, they had a press conference and told that if the person, the Chinmoy, is not given the bail by Wednesday, they'll have a long march to his jail. So again, they are trying to continue their movement.
I will come to you. This important point it is. We are going for a short break. Viewers, we are going for a short break. Please keep watching. We are back to the talk show Promising Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. And we are having talks with Barrister Asaduzzaman Fuad and Dr. Jahid Rahman. Mr. Asaduzzaman Fuad, it is well known to all that anything happens in Bangladesh, it goes to the doors of India, because there is a perception India is everywhere in Bangladesh. What is your overall focus on the whole thing?
India has an aspiration to become superpower, not only in the region but beyond. And we know they have been campaigning for many years to become a permanent member of the Security Council. Only issue is about China vetting the proposition. I'm sure America, Britain and France would be quite happy to take India as a member of the permanent member of the Security Council, but of course Russia perhaps and China would not be quite happy about it, because they know very well that they will lose a friend outside the member and get an enemy within. And at the end of the day, India will remain aligned with America and their Western forces. So issue is about no harm about any country had that aspiration to become a superpower, and economy size-wise they're with 6 or 7 currently globally. Issue is about when you aspire to become something, critical question is, are you really capable of becoming a superpower? Now, they feel because of the size of their economy, they can do that. Now, the problem is a society so broken within their institutions cannot be ever a superpower. Now, look at the Indian society as a whole. It's a nation of nations. India has more than 2,500 languages. They have ethnicity of over 1,000, 1,200 to 1,300 ethnicities. And of course, they have the casteist system of people dividing by their birth. Now, the question is, can you be ever judged by the family you were born into, by the skin that you belong to, by the language you speak to, by the place you have been grown up? Now, a society doesn't have a merit or a meritocracy, cannot be ever aspire to become superpower. Now, look at the superpower themselves, America, Britain, France, or Western countries. Why they matter? Not only because they had eliminated the discrimination within, they also adopted people across the world. See, America is a nation of immigrants. If you're a black, if you're a brown, if you're Asian, if you're Muslim, Christian, Arab, African, Latinos, everybody goes there like a melting pot. And by generation, they become American. So it's a value system they propose to the world, and the world accepts and become part of it. That's how a nation of superpower grows. So can you imagine a leadership, a bunch of people forming an organization like RSS and BJP can overcome the problems and the discriminatory societal system of India and become a superpower? That's a pure utopia. The Indian state is so much and irrelevant to its own society. It doesn't belong there. And the society doesn't belong to India. And you can imagine why Seven Sisters is a security threat. Because you do not accept those people as citizens. Why people take arms? We know it from our own experience from Chittagong Hill Tracks. Why people become arms? Because you alienated them from the citizenship, from the rights. We have seen in Arakan, Rakhine state, why people were deprived of for decades, because they did not belong to the Burmese state. That's what happens to India. Look at the 6th or 7th largest economy of the world. At the same time, the largest number of poor, extremely poor people are also in India. 80% almost live below the poverty line. Can you imagine a country, the 6th largest, 80% below poverty line, like 15 or 16 million youths unemployed every year, and added up to the total numbers, can become superpower? I don't see simply how the numbers add up to it. We can only see how the society excluding each other by religion, by race, by caste. And this society is so bogged down within the ideas of 16th century or the 12th century or the 10th century fundamentalism and the legends and the books and kind of things. They aspire to become like leaders of science and technology. They believe in the like Mojo Empire and those legends and how they good and the brilliant civilization they had, which the historians like Thapar and others just simply like plastered out. This is bogus thing. India never had a civilization. Indian civilization always started by the arrival of the Muslims, by the Mughals, by the Persian, by the Turkish, by the Central Asian. Now, how would their society exclude that golden part of their life and still aspire to become superpowers? These are contradictions within the Indian society and culture that they need to address. Now, how that covers up the whole Akhand Bharat, the undivided India theory, it never existed in the Indian psycho. India never had a statehood until the British came up. India became India as a state because of British colonialists, and only last century, perhaps 1940s, 1930s, when perhaps by the invasion of Delhi, 1836, 38 around, you can say India became consolidated by the British. So you never had a state or an empire of your own which was so brilliant and so proud of. So these are factual and historical lies that this society and the country believes in. And this Akhand Bharat idea is basically a blunder to their foreign policy. You have seen how the new parliament building was inaugurated. President, because she belongs to a lower caste, she was invited to it. Can you imagine? That's the state they lead now, who is aspiring to become superpower, because she's a lower caste. She doesn't look like the Aryan, Central Asian, Arjo kind of a people. So that transforms the Akhand Bharat map. They put a map on it, on the parliament building, within the parliament building. And that covers all of us, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, Pakistan, Afghanistan, everybody. Can you imagine how if modern state becomes so naive to put a map on it that these are the countries I shall like adopt and add up and annex over the years to become one single state, and yet become good friends to those neighbors and see the reaction to it. You lost Maldives, you lost Sri Lanka, you lost Bangladesh, you lost Afghanistan, you lost China, you lost Pakistan, everybody in the neighborhood. Not a single country that is in good terms with India.
I will come to you. Yes, not a single country is with India. Dr. Jahidur Rahman.
I'd like to pick Nepal as an example of that. It's different because unlike other countries, it's a Hindu majority country. So the so-called Hindutva didn't work here. And most of the people of Nepal are very much anti-Indian. I'd like to refer to 2016, how stupid the foreign policy of India is. Nepal was writing its own constitution. What they did was there are some gross dividation of their lands, some hilly areas and some plain land, which is called Tarai region. What Nepal did, they divided the Tarai region and added those two hilly provinces, which India didn't like. Interestingly, India is trying to dictate the writing of a constitution of an independent country. They told that the Tarai should be a separate state. Nepal didn't do that. Then India created some blockade. It's a landlocked country, so its goods are transformed through India. There are some strikes of truck drivers, but everybody knew what's happening here. But it happened just 3 or 4 months after that earthquake that shattered Nepal, the Kathmandu. They went through a serious humanitarian disaster, but India did it. So think how naive, how unsmart, how stupid, I better say the word, their foreign policy is. And after that incident, Nepal's people became almost the enemies of India. So all the countries in Maldives, just India out campaign can ensure the win of a candidate. I believe it can work even in our country. So they have to realize, but the problem is they don't realize that. Their psyche, the very psyche, not only BJP has some different points, very nicely explained by Mr. Fuad. But all the parties, those who were in power, including Congress and the deep state, their bureaucracy, they think that they are the owner of this whole subcontinent, and all other countries must be either vassal state or colony of that country. That's their attitude, in fact. So what's happening here, still one more point should be added. In domestic politics, when they're trying to unify everybody under one specific belief, it was told previously that Hindu religion was very much related to India, and it could create the unity of that, because Hindu religion accommodated many forms of thoughts and beliefs. Give an example like Durga is the mostly worshipped idol in West Bengal, but it's not that much prominent in other areas of India. Rather, Ram is more revered. But what BJP is trying to do, imposing Ram to all the Hindu people, Jai Sri Ram. Not only that, they're trying to impose their language, which is very much characteristics of any fascist party. In South India, they're trying to impose Hindi language. So they're creating some problems in internal politics or domestic politics. They're getting some results in some areas, but it's not performing well. So what they try to do is they're trying to do project to show their power in some other countries. And when a fascist party is in power, if you are defeated in some cases, like in Bangladesh, if it were a democratic country, it should have realized that yes, fine, it's done. Sheikh Hasina served us a lot. She destroyed her country by serving us. Now it's a gone case, it's done. Let's have some relationship with a new government. Try to realize their uprising, try to appreciate them. What I told that, try to criticize the people massacred here and try to create relationship with that country. But they're not trying to do that because they've got some ego. They are defeated. They'll try to show or project their power by force and ensure that yes, I'm a power. So this is not, in fact, is the way to project your power as a superpower. If you are interested to be a superpower, the term is power, so you have to project your power. But this is not in that way. India is making this very mistake, and years after years, they're making the same mistake, and still they're not learning from that. I found some Indian intellectuals who
I will come to you.
Yes.
We will start
Okay.
after a short break.
Okay.
Viewers, we're going for a short break. Please keep watching. Viewers, we are back to the talk show Promises in Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement, and this is Sinha A.M. Saeed anchoring this very talk show. We are having talks with Barrister Asaduzzaman Fuad and Dr. Jahidur Rahman. And Mr. Jahidur Rahman, we are just continue.
Okay. Now let's talk a bit about our India-Bangladesh relationship. Sheikh Hasina created a disaster in that relationship because India were habituated with some state and colony relationship. Sheikh Hasina was a slave of that country, and she destroyed her country for pleasing India. And truly it was a colony. I don't believe Bangladesh was a state at that moment. So India got that comfort, and they tried to showcase that is the ideal relationship between two neighboring countries. If this is the ideal relationship, then there's no country, no independent country in the world. Previously, they were free to tell everything without any protest. Mr. Amit Shah, some years back, told Bangladesh is a termite. There's no official protest against that statement. But what he told recently, another derogatory comment, our foreign minister strongly protested that. So it's continuing on doing so. Even the last one, which they issued on the arrest of Mr. Chinmoy Krishna Prabhu, our foreign ministry issued a counter narrative on that. So this type of relationship is not ideal for India. They wanted some slave, they'll be just do what Mr. Modi or India government says, they simply will do that. Sheikh Hasina, without ensuring the interest of our country, did everything for their state, and her bargain was just to keep her in power. That was the only trade-off. But Dr. Yunus is not doing that. Frankly speaking, what Dr. Yunus is doing nowadays might seem so revolutionary compared to Sheikh Hasina, but it's a very mere, very petty sovereign states chief of the government statements, not more than that. In his interview with PTI, he debunked the torture on Hindus. Not only that, when Mr. Modi told him and asked him about torture on Hindus, I clearly mentioned, I asked Mr. Modi to send journalists to check it. We are free to everything. So this is not the ideal relationship. Now what we can do, in fact we can do anything. We cannot be Sheikh Hasina. Dr. Yunus should not be. If he is Sheikh Hasina, we will protest against that. No government in the country will be or have the opportunity to be another Sheikh Hasina. There's no way. From Dr. Yunus's side, even he tried to create some relationship with India as well. He showed his interest to have some sideline meeting in the United Nations General Assembly with Mr. Modi, but they declined that. So India is not cooperating. They are not interested to do so. The way we are going on now, that's fine. So from my point of view, I believe if we can continue that, India should be careful about that relationship, because for instance, they are not issuing visa for Bangladeshi people, though they are saying that very emergency visas are being issued, but it's not true. I found some person who had 2 chemotherapies in India and now is not getting visa to go there again. But recently we came across some reports from Kolkata that many businesses are based on Bangladesh, like hotels, like commodities and hospitals. They are not having their least number of customers. They are in severe loss. So if this is continuing in the future, I believe Indian government should be careful, and there should be a sustained position what Dr. Yunus is taking in our country now. Even in the future, if the elected government is going on in the same track, we might face some problems in short term, but in mid and long term, the problem will surely be solved. India will have to be careful about that. Same thing happened in Maldives as well. When Mr. Mujib was elected, India tried to building some relations with Mujib, because he was very strong and tough on Indian attitude. So if we can continue doing that, we'll be able to win that situation, I think. Same thing happened also in Sri Lanka with the Rajapaksa brothers. So India tried a lot to create relationships with them. We should continue.
Thank you very much. Barrister Asaduzaman Bua. There is a great saying, Bangladesh foreign policy largely disturbed by India. Will question relationship with West or in the East or with China or Russia, even America is not in a position to come to Bangladesh without touching India. How far this reality is true in the present, under the present circumstances?
See, Indian foreign policy wise for last 77 years or so, it doesn't have any success except separation of Pakistan in 1971. So India needs to come to realize how disastrous their foreign policy engagement was. Now they need to review their own activities, what they want from the neighborhood. Now none of us in the neighborhood would like to be a vassal state. None of us in the neighborhood would like to be staying at the backyard of somebody else. None of us in the neighborhood would like to be dictated upon, that what needs to be done, what cannot be done, kind of things. They must come to learn the relationship and how they would like to aspire in the future way out. India, with regard to Bangladesh, first needs to understand they have made disasters, blunders after blunders for last 16 years. India is most hated country in Bangladesh now, and there is no fault of the Bangladeshis in having so. It's absolutely squarely the failure of the Delhi administration. People of Bangladesh are very open. There are millions of Bangladeshis traveling around in India, going for treatment there, having trade, and Bangladesh is basically a huge buyer from India. Millions perhaps Indian legally and illegally are working in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is second or third highest remittance source for India. Our trade deficit is huge. It's $15 or $16 billion to $2 to $2.5 billion in favor of Bangladesh. So it's a huge trade deficit, and India at the end of the day owns and gets the benefit of it. So if India really wants to have those things going on, they need to understand they made mistakes, they made blunders. They need to have their own repentance of what they have done. Secondly, there is a discourse in Delhi and in Bangladesh within the so-called civil society that we cannot live without India. It's surrounded all the way around. Our security, our sovereignty, our national interest, our domestic stability and so forth are all dependent. Even our daily commodities, eggs to onions, lentils to vegetables, whatever it is, are all coming from India. The fact of the matter is these are lies. We rather can live without India. We can provide our own security and sovereignty. But India cannot have their own territorial integrity without having good relationship with Bangladesh. So our position is a dominant position. As Bangladesh cannot survive without India. But India cannot have a country of India without Bangladesh. That India needs to remember. What is the chicken necks? There are a lot of issues, but we are respectful to Indian territorial integrity, absolutely respectful. And I urge the Bangladeshi administration to make sure and guarantee and have dialogue with the Indian counterparts to ensure they are secure, they feel secure. But that doesn't mean our threat perception is compromised. For a nation as a Bangladeshi, this is the fact of the matter is, we need to realize who our enemy is, who are to be compatible with in terms of our national interest. Now, India stands at the top, that we have to consider it. Now, having that threat perception, we shall ensure all kind of relationship with India in the long run. That is for the neighborhood relationship matters. Now, with regard to the Trump administration, the forthcoming administration in January onwards, there is a lot of similarities among Hasina, Modi, Trump as individuals and the kind of party they belong to and the kind of electoral mass they represent. But the problem is that Washington's policy simply doesn't switch by the change of registration of a person, by change of regime. Now, if you can remember, there was a Hindu woman by the name of Priya Shah went to see Trump during his last tenure, and she complained about 35 million Hindus are being persecuted in Bangladesh. And funny enough, Trump was asking her, where is Bangladesh? So you can imagine the jubilation within the Hasina camp and Modi administration, the kind of friend they have in Washington. Even he doesn't know what Bangladesh is. So they are trigger happy that they managed to buy a tweet with a few $1 million during the election campaign that has covered their back. I don't think so. The funny enough is, if you listen to Trump's victory speech, he thanked Muslim American, Latino American, Black American, Hispanic American, but he did not mention about Hindu American. So if India really understands where Trump stands and how highly predictably unpredictable person he is, that is something that they need to take lesson. Of course, there are some hawkish appointment, Tulsi Gabbard and few others. And we have seen those hawkish appointments during his last tenure. It didn't make much difference. Trump is a different kind of a guy. He's not going to be bothered about Bangladesh. Perhaps Biden administration or any Democratic administration would have been more assertive in terms of promotion of democracy, good governance and rule of law. Trump could be much more less interested because the political international relation landscape, Bangladesh comes at the list of priority to his administration. So there is a lot of issues that there is nothing for India or Bangladesh Hasina regime to be interested in or to be jubilant about. So our fact of the matter is, in the Indo-Pacific, we are firmly on board in terms of rule of law, good governance, climate issues, Rohingya crisis, and democracy promotion, labor rights, and so forth. We are already working with American administration, and this shall not go away. And America also needs to understand that Bangladesh is a net security provider for America in the Indo-Pacific at the Bay of Bengal. That doesn't mean we're going to be at war with China or anyone else or in Burma. So we had a brilliantly positioned in terms of maintaining very powerful, very strategic relationship with everybody around. And India needs to understand the strength of our size, the strength not in the landmass, but the strength of our location and geography. So if they're serious, there are a lot of sectors that we all can work together. People both in Bangladesh and India are poor. They need to be fed. Both in India and Bangladesh, people are illiterate. They need to be educated. Both in India and Bangladesh, people are not getting access to medical treatment, so they need to provide access to treatment. Both need shelters and housing and accommodation. So if the both countries are serious about helping each other in terms of the people-to-people relationship, that should be the best way forward for India and Bangladesh. India needs to come out the mindset of boss, bullying attitude. Big brother bullying attitude shall not be tolerated. That is the message of Monsoon Uprising in June, July, and August 2024. Stop supporting Hasina and the deposed loyalists of the last regime. It's not going to work. It failed, and it shall fail again. You remember 1975? It failed then too, and you haven't learned the lesson. You created chaos, you created mercenary forces here to destabilize the country, you created political parties only to serve your purpose. It didn't work. So please do something which is fundamentally sustainable relationship. These proxies shall not benefit you in the long run.
Thank you very much, Barrister Fuad, and thank you very much, Dr. Jahidur Rahman. It is about time to go. Viewers, we are about to end this talk show, and before ending this talk show, I have to, as usual, summarize what the two guests commented and viewed and analyzed the events, the discussions. And both of them are very much aware of what is happening in Bangladesh, especially the issues centering ISKCON and the arrest of Chinmoy Das. And they feel that proper steps should be taken here, and India by this time made a statement which is not in consonance with the spirit of the people of Bangladesh. And accordingly, the Foreign Minister of Bangladesh also made a reply, echoing the voice of the independence of Bangladesh, at the same time pointing out nothing took place in Bangladesh centering the Hinduism. It is a matter of ISKCON. ISKCON means a sentiment, an ideology, not a religion in true sense of the term. And the person who has been arrested is not at all so. And that is the feeling the people in Bangladesh. At the same time, both of them believe that India should behave in such a way as a responsible state in the South Asia. And whenever anything happens in Bangladesh, everybody try to have a sense whether India is here or not. And India itself playing a role very negatively after the fall of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And both of the guests believe that India should come forward with a very big heart about Bangladesh, because Bangladesh to some extent does not need India from the point of view of geography. India needs Bangladesh for its territorial integrity, and that is the conclusion. And we also believe India should have understanding what is going to take place in the coming days. If India takes responsibility to become a superpower, it has to go through a long way, because there are so many things culturally, geographically, ethnically. Not only this India, if we become the military power. Military power is not only the guarantee, an issue to become a superpower. And both of them believe that India should take note of all these things, and perhaps the coming days will be very positive for both India and Bangladesh. And thank you very much. We'll meet you in the next talk show. Thank you.